Another live stream recording of Hearthstone. Today is Monday, October 8th. We've got games to play as far as Hearthstone. Good news and bad news. I have fixed and done something kind of cool to the point where, if I can pull this up right, I can now do a bit of a web peek. So for instance, when I'm talking about a game, I can hold down a button. You can see what I'm looking at. You should be able to see it right now. When I release the button, after about a second, it will go back to Hearthstone. This is oddly accomplished by simply holding down the button and having a loop constantly try to change it back to Hearthstone, and and so it causes a slight flickeringness to the experience, certainly, but it works. Unfortunately, this does mean that I still need a third monitor so I can make sure what I'm doing is actually what is supposed to be happening, and that kind of bit me in the butt. Also, this new setup kind of bit me in the butt. I must have bumped the button as I was recording Borderlands 2, and for the first time in 4 years, I have now lost 4 hours of content. 4 hours of admittedly grindy, not that interesting Borderlands 2 content, but at the very end of the game. So basically 2 of the last regions of the game just lost all that content. Like, I have the audio, but it's black screen for the video. So yeah, that has always been my fear. It is why when I start recording videos, I often will start recording videos and then stop and then start again, just because I wasn't 100% certain I hit the right button to start recording, and I've avoided it for the most part. I've lost content for other reasons, but this is the first time because I was on the wrong scene on OBS, and that's what these are, or different scenes is how they call them. But that doesn't have too much to do with Hearthstone. I did finish the main story of Borderlands. I guess we don't have any overlap here, so we need to just play Paladin and Priest to start with. We don't have a tavern brawl. So yeah, I'm done with the main story in Borderlands. I'm a little surprised on how easy it was to defeat the Handsome Jack and the Warrior, which it's not really a big spoiler to say those are the 2 last people you fight in Borderlands. Fighting the Warrior is interesting because he is this very special giant creature that you don't get to experience anywhere else in Borderlands 2, at least for the main game, where in the first game you had Rackhides, and it felt like there were bigger monsters that you were fighting, and they decided not to bring anything like that back. I think the people you fought in Borderlands 1 were a lot more varied and fun, the monsters, the creatures. I feel like Borderlands 2 in particular was overly emphasized on Hyperion enemies, and they had already had, surely people complained in the DLC of Borderlands 1, the Secret Armory DLC in particular, where you were constantly fighting Atlas members, and just nothing but Atlas members. So I don't know why they doubled down on that. My only guess is that perhaps development of Borderlands 2 ran parallel to some of the DLC. Speaking of DLC, I thought I owned all the things that could be owned for Borderlands 2, but it turns out there actually are several, I would say about 20 99-cent skin packs that you don't get with the season pass. And that's just pathetic. Borderlands 2 really does feel like it wanted to be an MMO, and they wanted the DLC and microtransaction you a lot more than they eventually ended up doing. because most people would have gotten the season pass. I feel, but the idea that you have to pay extra to get skins is ridiculous. Skins in Borderlands 2 are ridiculous in the first thought. But what makes it so bad is there's really no variety in any of the people you see walking around. Like, so little variety that most characters have things covering their faces and covering their mouths, just to hide the fact that they didn't really want to animate it. There's a lot of bandanas over the face, goggles over their eyes. The idea that there were skin packs out there and that some of those heads and faces could have been put on different characters to make them look different is kind of insane. Also, it probably would have helped more with establishing more characters. Yeah, so at the end of the day, I guess I just think that was a greedy decision. It's easy to oops, forgot to attack. It's easy to overlook Gearbox's and 2K's greediness in Borderlands because it's such a beloved, nostalgic game. But when you think about Battleborn and how they re-released the Bulletstorm game and didn't offer any kind of discount for people who had already owned the Bulletstorm, or how We Happy Few is way too expensive a game for what it is, and frankly, as a side note, also not a game that people wanted. There's some weirdness like that. Duke Nukem Forever, again, a game that, at least when it originally came out, was really expensive for what is a complete and total piece of garbage game. Like, and then when I was watching the credits of the main story of Borderlands 2, it really brings about a question about how many people really were on the team at Gearbox when Borderlands 2 was being developed. How many people really worked on that game? Because there is this feeling that actually 2K games may have had a lot more involvement than you would at first realize. And that has been allegations that have been made to Gearbox before. I was also surprised to find that Borderlands 2 did use Unreal Engine. I thought it was using its own engine. So theoretically, they could have been using Unreal Engine 2 in Borderlands 2. They may be using Unreal Engine, well, they should be using Unreal Engine 4 now. Heck, they could have been using Unreal Engine 1. Then you get into storyline complaints I have that the Borderlands 2 is just way too serious, and it's probably too serious at the beginning of the game. I think if you had Brick, the Berserker from the first game, be the mission giver for the first 3/4 of the game, and not have Sanctuary attacked by Jack and cause Sanctuary to be teleported into the sky until you were 3/4 of the way into the game, and that would have been the indicator that now we're going to be on the critical path to move the story forward, and everything you do from this point is going to be focused around that point. That would have been a better experience to just have it like that. Also, ideally, with the exception of an area called Heroes Pass, which is this gate that is locked, and you have to have Claptrap unlock the gate for you. All the areas before that could have easily been 100% open and accessible at the beginning of the game. The entire game, on modern PCs at least, would play a lot better if there were no load sections, no load walls, and instead it was just one giant open world. It is basically that anyways, it's just that they split up some of the parts of the open world. I would also say that some of the sections probably would have benefited from they probably would have benefited from being connected to other areas. Some of the layouts are put areas in far corners of far corners. You really don't get a good feel of what the central area of Pandora and Borderlands 2 is. It's not 3 divides, certainly, because although that would be the central area of the beginning section, it really isn't that. It's not Highlands, which would have kind of been the central area of the middle section. There's so much content in Borderlands 2 that had half of it been left on the cutting room floor and saved for the next game, we would have had Borderlands 3 by now. Let's see. If I do this and then do this, we can just swing. And then I very awkwardly, and I'm gonna very awkwardly bring up this point, kind of complain about the art style of, well, everything, but certainly it was in the new Siren's outfit, Maya's outfit, but frankly Axton and Salvador and Zero too, like the outfits that they have are all kind of out of the fashion when you look at like what Mad Moxie was wearing in the first game and is still kind of wearing in the second game. They in Borderlands 2 hid Mad Moxie behind a counter just so you really can't see that her underwear is showing in her clown gesture makeup outfit. But when you look at Lilith, the Firehawk, the main siren of the first game, and her clothing, she has like an elbow cover on the right arm, but you can still see a lot of her right arm. She has a pretty big amount of cleavage showing. There's always been this slightly more like, this is a desert, this is the kind of place where you would show cleavage, and also this is a world where people are not concerned about this. This is a gamer bro frat boy thing, and a little bit of skin, a little bit of titillation is in line with the character. And then you look at Maya's outfit, and it is not only covering her completely, she has like one arm with the tattoos. The tattoos are a big thing too. It's like everybody has scars in Borderlands. Everybody's showing off those scars and those tattoos. But Maya has like one arm, her left arm showing, and that is kind of it. Everything else is covered. Everything else is covered in an odd Hyperion outfit. Now the guys are getting way worse, with the exception of Brick, who has these giant arms that are showing off. Almost every male character in the game is nearly covered head to toe. They'll get short sleeves and maybe show that, but there's nobody running around showing any kind of legs or anything like that. So you kind of wish, just to balance it out, that there was a slight female gaze, to use a bad term, developed into the game. There was certainly in the DLC of the first game a character who was clearly gay, and it was done as a joke, and I think maybe as things have changed, they got feedback that people didn't like that, or that they didn't even like the mention of gay characters, and they overreacted that way. Or, I mean, Borderlands 2 would have been right around the time, I imagine, for the fight for gay marriage in the United States, and that they may have tried to be more respectful, which makes me kind of wonder. Borderlands 3 might be very SJW-y, and it might kind of suck because of that.
Your magic shall not.
Borderlands 2 is a little bit like that too, but that is, like I said, this is an awkward conversation that I've tried to have several times, and I don't think I had it right. And it goes to a bigger issue of all the fashion of all the characters just look horrible. Zero, the assassin, was the character I was playing as, and he's covered head to toe in clothing. You have no idea who he is or what he is. But his outfits, even with many skins unlocked, are all boring and dull. It's not until you get to the DLC characters of the Necromancer and the Psycho do you start to get back to the kind of crazy, insane fashion that existed in Borderlands 1. And I would say Tales for the Borderlands also seems to manage to get back to that fashion, so I don't know why Gearbox couldn't even stick thematically with what the first game was, or go in that direction. It seems like they were more focused on taking all the interesting outfits and skins and selling them, instead of making the characters look interesting. And when you look at the random people in Sanctuary, none of them have any kind of fashion at all. They're wearing basically regular clothes, which then makes this weird division of, are Vault Hunters just inspired or required to dress like crazily, and that just never gets mentioned. But that is such a small, minor complaint that's hard to have. It is just part of a bigger issue. My two big fears about Borderlands 3, if it ever even comes out, the biggest fear is it's just Half-Life 3 at this point, and it's never coming out, or it's coming out in such a terrible way that nobody wants to play it. But my biggest fear is that it is going to be beating you over the head with like progressive ideals, to the point where you just can't have fun. It's going to be beating you over the head with serious storyline elements, and you're not going to have fun. I mean, really, all I want for Borderlands 2 is just to turn your brain off and shoot a bunch of people. I also feel like the bazillions of guns element is unbalanced and stupid at this point. The whole concept of the game mechanic needs to be tweaked. Like, you need to pick up less amounts of garbage guns, or you need to be able to instantaneously break down guns, or you need to be able to dismantle guns and take the parts of the guns that you like and merge them together into a better gun, and then sell the rest of the parts. But when half of your game, which is not much of an overstatement, half of Borderlands 2 is just playing menu hero, is all it is. You're picking up all on your first gameplay. You're picking up a ton of white rarity guns that are nowhere worth even considering, even if you hadn't used golden keys. Using golden keys kind of ruins the experience for you, but it did at the final second seem to have me about 3 or 5 levels higher than I should have been, which might suck because I still have all this DLC to do. I'm hoping that the DLC turns into a way, since I've never played the DLC before, I'm hoping it becomes a way that I can find the fun back in Borderlands 2 and get away from the main story and just do some ridiculous amount of gameplay. But I'm also in a weird position there where I want to do some scheduling before I hop back into Borderlands 2 and do the DLC. Borderlands 2 at this rate is probably going to run into January or February of 2019, but I think I might as well stick with it. And I'm not 100% sure I'm going to record anything else for November, so November very well may just be Boomsday videos and Borderlands and Hearthstone videos, and then that's all that's gonna happen. Let's start covering the news at this point. The What's on Steam Twitter page just realized that their bot wasn't working, and then they got it working. I'm not 100% sure that it really is What's on Steam's fault, though, because I think what we're running into is an instance of the of Steam potentially just not allowing games to come out on the weekends, which, I mean, that's fine by me. I'm sure developers of games certainly don't want it. So the thing about this web peek feature is I've got to look at the game, I've got to decide, is this going to have be a game that is potentially going to have nudity in the screenshots or something like that, and then I've got to press the button, so I'm going to have to be on the ball with that. There was a way in which I could have the mouse cursor determine which thing I'm looking at. So if I was over to the right of my monitor where I keep my second monitor, which would be at a X position above 1920, because the resolution of a 1080p is 0 to 1920 and 0 to 0 to 1920 and 0 to 1080p. So if my monitor was at the bottom of my screen and I moved the mouse that way to go to the second monitor, then I'd program it differently. So I could program it so whenever the mouse cursor is on this monitor, and you can see that, it would show Hearthstone, and then whenever it went to the right, and it would show whatever I'm looking at, which would work and remove the necessity to press a button. But then there is that risk of I go to the right as there is that one bit of nudity happening. Also, there's a lot of times when my mouse cursor is way over here on the right, reading things that don't really matter.
Reporting for duty.
So I'm gonna stick with the button. So we've got this game called Nearscape, and how much of that showed when I just tap it. Like, that's 1 second, 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. I might need to change it to like 3 seconds, just to show. It says it's an adventure game. It's actually one of these Roblox asset flips. Now, on the user interface, there's a little bit of polish there. Also, these windows are zoomed in pretty big for me. But yeah, it's just a Roblox skin in a first-person shooter. It's an English, Russian, Korean game, which tells me it's probably a troll game in early access. I'm just doing this for this one time. And it's 15% off for $3.39. So it's way too expensive. Then sometimes when I look at games, I would look at reviews, but there's no reviews for this. Or I would come back up to the top and look at the reviews amount that's there.
Protocol 7 engaged.
Job's done.
So that's kind of the general idea of what I do when I look at a game, is I scroll through those key points. And of course my Steam page being zoomed in looks different than it would for most people. Of course Newscape is just one of those games that is too expensive and looks like too much of a low effort thing. Now, I have set the web peak specifically so that it has the same background color of Steam. So if I do like a web peak for this Tech Raptor article, you'll see that on the edges it's still blue, and on the web peak you still should be able to see a very small screen of what's going on in Hearthstone, and the chat rules should be readable, hopefully. I put a little extra work in here right in the time where I don't have time to do extra work, but that I think November is probably a good time to start thinking about, for any YouTube channel, to start thinking about what can you do to improve your channel, what can you take a little bit of a break from making content and saying, hey, let's instead improve our content. I still want to make an outro, and in making the outro I need every little section to be its own separate thing, because who knows, I may lose my Patreon or stop emphasizing on the Patreon, and I may want to re-record the outro so it works without a Patreon, or same could be true for like Google Plus and things like that.
Perhaps.
My outro, ideally, once I have a final outro set up and I like it, or it's better than me just talking, that could be that, and that'll save me a little bit of time.
You are the Shadow's puppets. Right away.
I'm not sure my outro has ever been particularly effective. It's just kind of there because it's there. Moving on though, we have Tech Raptor has this article, rumor new Batman Arkham title to be announced. This is basically a rumor, and so they're commenting on a rumor that a new Batman Arkham title may be announced. I think you have to do something different, in all honesty, because the last Batman game was such a terrible piece of garbage. Like, you don't just come back from that and say, well, okay, that last one we made sucked, so let's just make a new one. Like that doesn't make sense.
Is someone injured?
I think what they have to do is say they need to, at the very least, not call it Arkham anything. They need to say, we have a new Batman game, we're going to make some major changes, we're going to put a lot more effort into it, and it's going to be a whole new series. It is not the 5th game in the Arkham series, it's not the 4th game in the Arkham series, depending on how they were doing the counting. It's its whole new thing. It will take some of the things you liked in the Arkham games, but it will leave on the cutting room floor some of the things that you didn't like. In particular, I don't think
Right away.
that people particularly want to run around and collect anywhere as near as there were Riddler trophies in a new Batman game. There could be a few of those, but if you're going above 100 simple Riddler trophies, you've gone too crazy. And if there's any other collectibles that needs to reduce the number of Riddler trophies, I would say 300 collectibles at max is probably what you want. Also, what you probably could do as just an idea off the top of my head is make the next Batman game set in Metropolis. Like, get out of Arkham completely. That establishes a lot of things, but in particular it tells the developers that it tells people that your game is not just going to be the same old. Let's see if I heal this. And didn't do this. And yeah, I'm gonna die regardless. Yeah, so if Batman was in Metropolis investigating something, you could have new villains instead of going with the Joker and the Riddler and the Penguin and just the same old people. You could have a new world. It could be a much brighter and good looking world. Inherently though, this is asking quite a lot because this is from WB, the same people that continuously just want to spew out the same Batman movies over and over again. And so it's probably all my suggestions or criticisms, even if they were to reach the developers, would be falling on deaf ears.
Right away.
I think you probably should get away also from the Batman Arkham style of fighting. I never liked that fighting. I never liked the idea of having to dodge and break combos or having to land combos to actually kill or defeat any enemy. It was really annoying. I know I made it to the end of the first Batman Arkham game, Arkham Asylum or whatever it was called, but I never had any interest in playing any of the games after that. And I really still don't have any interest in playing any of those games. Let's see.
My hand is too full.
Right away.
Meddlesome insects.
So yeah, I'd like a new fighting system. Ideally, maybe Batman games should be a little bit slower and linear and story based with a little less fighting in it. I think they would have to very much look at what Spider-Man did, considering how Spider-Man basically stole the Arkham Asylum style of gameplay in some ways, which, in all fairness, the Arkham Asylum gameplay style basically stole it from Spider-Man in the first place. So yeah, when you compare Spider-Man as the Marvel character versus Batman as the DC character, Spider-Man is getting a lot of accolade for being fun to swing around, where the Batman games, I don't think really ever anybody said that. Spider-Man is getting a lot of accolades because you can just land on the ground and walk around and say hi to people and pose for photos. Batman really can't do that. Spider-Man clearly is the better character if you want to make a fun experience. Let's go ahead and kill that.
Shells up.
I would say probably Batman games should have a lot more interaction with other characters to try to humanize him and bring him in there. If you had a Robin that you had a good experience with, which is a rare instance for Batman, that would be good. If you had Batgirl in there and Batwoman in there, and you threw in Batwoman barely ever has any interaction with Batman, but if you throw her in there and they're all talking to you, and Commissioner Gordon, and you just really try your best to have some interactions. If you had Batman dating somebody, which happens on rare occasions, to at least keep up his Playboy appearance, that would be cool. It'd be nice if generally speaking, in the Batman stories, if Batman was actually somewhat dating somebody. And you see that in Peter Parker, where he's dating like Mary Jane and trying to have a relationship. Batman and Bruce Wayne never is trying to have a relationship with anybody. And it makes him a cold and uninteresting character to play with. It's kind of a shame that the Telltale Batman games didn't really sell or succeed, because I think probably going closer to a Telltale experience with a little bit more story is the right way to do it. Probably not as far as a Telltale experience for Batman, because I do think there should be some action in there. They could certainly get people's attention. I'm not sure if it would translate into sales if they were going to do a old corny Batman from like '76. That would be something. When you look at, if you think about Batman '76 and the old corny TV show, it really is way different than what we think of Batman now these days, with just being all in blackness and having no fun and no silliness at all. The things I think there's a lot of things I think they've already tried and failed with, like introducing Batman's old obscure rogue gallery probably doesn't solve any real issues. Thanks. So for instance, introducing Calendar Man, or there was like Zaz and rare characters. Nobody's a Mothman. None of that helps. That's something that worked fine for Lego Batman, where you have these silly experiences, but if they're gonna go a little bit serious, I think you have to leave all the incredibly ridiculous things out. You could probably do Man-Bat, but that's about as far as you could go. Let's move on though. The third game from the cat lady apparently, I think, has a Steam page is what Harvester Game and Screen 7, the developers of the Cat Lady trilogy now. The third game is called Lorelei. And I'm not sure if it's really fair to call it the Cat Lady series, but that's what I would describe it as. But I'm on a page right now, and it says it's not coming out for another 181 days. Which, okay. That's probably not something that's too important, but I'd throw it out there. So next October, hopefully I will have Lorelei and we can play it and we can finish that series. I didn't really like the sequel slash prequel slash remake of the prequel. It was fine, but it didn't quite catch my level of interest as the Cat Lady did. So I'm kind of hoping that Lorelei will be a lot better. Tech Raptor has an article. Telltale is slashing the prices on their titles amid the layoffs. Then they show a picture of a lot of their games being sold for $15 for like $15, where they originally sold for $30. I think like that's kind of a no-duh idea, though, that they're trying to make as much money as possible to probably just pay lawyers to file bankruptcy. And in all honesty, these Telltale games should have probably been $15 in the first place. I don't know if Tech Raptor is trying to imply anything here. I would hope that they aren't, but you want to get as much money as possible. That's why there's always these going out of business sales for businesses that are legitimately going out of business, and there's going out of business sales for businesses that aren't actually legitimately going out of business. And you could certainly make the argument that maybe Telltale isn't legitimately going out of business. Toys R Us seems to have decided that they actually weren't going out of business either. They were just laying off all their employees and shutting down all their stores. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Telltale stays in business and becomes this licensing company and just tries to make money off of their games that have been created. And licensing, I don't even know what they could really license other than the Telltale tool that nobody wants to use. So as contracts start to expire and people are probably less likely to want to renew contracts and do business with that non-acting entity or a non-practicing body, which is basically what I describe this theoretical new Telltale as, something that just a company that doesn't make any games but still sells the old games and tries to make money from them. But I imagine The Walking Dead, I imagine The Wolf Among Us, I imagine Batman, I imagine none of them are going to really want to renew contracts with them. But the money might be right, and it might be the only way to make sure that these games are somewhat playable. And it definitely puts me in a weird position, because I probably have a couple more Telltale games that I have and want to play. There's a couple of Telltale games I don't have and I'd like to play. So I'd like to finish my collection and play them, but nobody else would be able to buy and play those games. So at best I could say, well, you're gonna have to go find a cracked version on some BitTorrent site somewhere and play the game that way. But I suppose inherently that's not really my problem. I don't feel a specific need that I have to protect Telltale as part of the video game industry, when Telltale is effectively dead and is just this rotting corpse of a company that is only going to take money and not take any of that money and put it towards the development of a new game. I imagine there's probably several companies out there that really do just want to take money and not develop anything new, and you could look at EA and Ubisoft in some ways. Now Ubisoft certainly does make new games, but what kind of, the question is, are they really new games, or are they just new skins on old games? Because you could make both arguments. Is Odyssey really a new game, or is it just a skin of Origins? But honestly, I would say Odyssey is a new game. We're not to that point with Ubisoft, but EA certainly. Like FIFA 19 and FIFA 20 are going to be exactly the same, and FIFA 19 and FIFA 18 were exactly the same. But yeah, at the moment, the game's going cheaper and letting people maybe for the last time purchase these games legitimately and play them might be a good thing. You kind of just have to turn a blind eye, maybe cross your fingers that some of the money that goes into buying these games now might go to paying somebody who was creative or worked on the games. That's kind of all you can really say there. Probably not. It's probably going to all end up in the pockets of the upper management and the investors in Telltale. But that gets right back down to the piracy issue, and I'm not a huge proponent. You can go through my 4+ years of running this channel and say, like, I've never really even mentioned piracy until this point, but this is the instance. This is where you're not, where it gets to the point where, sure, you could buy the game, but it doesn't fund the industry, it doesn't fund anybody creative, it doesn't help society at all. It just gives money to the 1%, the rich people, and I am all about not giving money to people who are already rich and who don't add anything to society for what they take. That's why I believe in the concept of being criminally wealthy, where there's literally no way you could be as rich as you are in the United States society without having hurt more people or taken advantage of more people than you helped. Let's close that tab though. Got some things. TechRaptor has another article. No Man's Sky patch update adds new exocrafts and a summoning station. So now you have these kind of land-based vehicles that apparently you can use. I'm still in no way interested in playing No Man's Sky, so that's an easy enough tab to close.
Tortola, preserve us!
Bear your soul to me.
TechRaptor has another article. System Shock's remake October update shows it's back on track. That is a weird thing, certainly, to have to come out and say that we're going to have to slow down development of the System Shock remake because we're having trouble. I don't even remember what the trouble was. I think it was that they were trying to add a bunch of features, which is not really what anybody wanted, or they were just having trouble programming. In all fairness, and this might just be fixed quickly and easily with faster, like, better textures, although I don't know why you would develop a low quality texture as a temporary texture and then make a better texture later. The System Shock remake still has some problems.
I must consider.
It just does not look good. It looks like an old game put in a new engine. It's very square maze and blocky walls and repetitive textures. Like the quick take on this article is surprisingly what put this remake on my radar was when I heard about development troubles. After seeing more footage and the attention to detail Night Dive Studios has put into System Shock, I think it might I might give this one a try once it releases. And as somebody who hasn't played any of System Shock ever, I'm not sure I'm on board with that. Theoretically, I should go to the European account at this point, but I want to let's try a little Rogue. Really don't have a ton of news or games because this entire weekend what's on Steam didn't update anything. I mean, really it didn't seem like Steam came out with anything either. So maybe for 2 days I missed games that went on my wish list. If I am gonna do a going through the wish list every day in December, I need to probably record that at the pretty quickly. Like, I'm not even sure I could wait till the end of October. So there would be things going to the wish list that then got exempted from that video, which is fine, I suppose. Gematsu has an article. This is a more updated story on the Telltale story, and feels like, well, the Telltale saga has been brewing for quite a long time now, because it's the first real news in quite a long time. This feels like the beginning of the end. Skybound Games to finish The Walking Dead, the Telltale series, the final season. Original staff on board to finish the story in a way the fans deserve. I believe Skybound Games is a company that was created by the person who started Telltale, or one of the people who started Telltale, and was either ousted by the board or left. They should have attacked first. Let's see. Skybound Games has taken ownership and will finish the development of The Walking Dead, the Telltale series, the final series. The company announced at New York Comic Con 2018. The company will work with members of the original team from Telltale Games to finish the story in a way the fans deserve. Again, one would hope that at least could dangle a slightly legitimate offer of continued employment with Skybound Games, but I'm not 100% sure that it really does. Like, we need to look at Skybound Games as a company. This is a Gematsu article, and they just say no further information. So if we can just search Skybound Games and look at their games that they've made.
I wonder.
They made a mobile game called The Walking Dead Road to Survival. Apparently. See, their website is a mess. Let's see. Like, I don't see anything else here.
I wonder.
Apparently they made a bunch of tabletop games. Skybound Entertainment. Let's see. It made comics, television, film, digital, Skybound games. So Skybound Entertainment formed a company in April 2018 called Skybound Games. So if you want to put on your tinfoil hat for a second, you could say maybe Skybound Entertainment was one of the companies that was investing in Telltale, pulled out their support for Telltale, caused Telltale to go broke, and now they're swooping in to take control completely. In April 2018, Skybound announced the formation of Skybound Games, a publishing division focused on indie games. Coinciding with the announcement, the company also signed a publishing deal for console versions for Slime Rancher and The Long Dark. And then the only other part in Wikipedia says, in October 2018, due to the collapse of Telltale Games, Skybound Games will take the task of finishing the final 2 episodes of The Walking Dead final season, Broken Toys, and take us back to ending the game adaptation of their series. So, not a lot of information here. And let's see. Robert Kirchner is one of the founders of Skybound Entertainment, and he's best known for co-creating The Walking Dead. So literally the person who made the comic book owns the publishing company. So you kind of could tinfoil hat here and see that maybe this was a direct and intentional attempt by Skybound Entertainment to get control of their own licenses. But that assumes the part that we don't know about, which is that Skybound Entertainment was in any way funding Telltale. Which that's where you have to say. TechRaptor explains the article a little bit better. They say Robert Kirkman steps in to rescue Telltale's The Walking Dead. And see, he really does look like the hero in this story for basically saving his own series. This is a Variety report. I have been noticing also that there is a list of like breaking video game news. More and more is not coming from Kotaku or Polygon or anything like that. It is coming from places like Variety, which I guess maybe that would be a good thing. I wouldn't say that I have great faith that news publishers like Variety or USA Today or New York Times would be any better than Giant Bomb, Kotaku, Polygon, but maybe they are. Like, maybe they'd bring some credibility and some actual professionalism into reporting information. It really comes down to the question: do you think Variety is getting worse as a journalistic entity because they've started to get some breaking stories on video games and they started to focus a little bit more on video game news, or are they making video game news a little bit better because they're bringing some professionalism to it? And it probably is a little bit of both. Let's see. TechRaptor's article has a quote: "We've successfully negotiated with Telltale Games for our company Skybound to come in and see Season 4 of the Telltale game to completion. We can't lose Andrew, Lincoln, and Clementine in the same year." I don't know who Andrew Lincoln is. So that reference is lost on me.
Job done.
Let's see. The thing here.
Reporting for duty.
The thing here is, if you save the Telltale series it's something you can recommend people play in the future, but it doesn't really save Telltale games in general. The last Telltale Walking Dead game is the end of Telltale games. Like, nobody is going to make point-and-click adventures that really aren't point-and-click adventures and are more designed around the idea of having
Speak your peace.
Oh, how do you even say it?
Speak your peace.
For the wild.
Having dialogue, yeah, that's, I guess, what I'm trying to say here. GameIndustry.biz has the same article, Skybound, the complete development of Telltale's The Walking Dead. What do you even do with The Walking Dead if you were going to make a new game series by Skybound? You don't, you make it completely different. You don't have Clementine. You maybe have a time jump. You maybe have a location jump. I think you're probably better having a location jump and setting something. The thing is, I think everything we've seen on The Walking Dead from any media, the TV, the comic books, or anything, if I was to just roughly guess, I really don't know. I would suspect we've only seen things on the East Coast of the United States. So, if we could remove that as a factor and go, say, to Mexico, or Central America, South America, Africa, I think you probably would have a slight problem shooting a lot of African people in the head, even if they are zombies, so you probably couldn't do that. You could probably not do it in the Middle East for the same reason, or India, or, like, you could do it in China, but then one assumes that such a densely populated area of any of the Asian countries would be so densely packed that nobody would survive at all. So then you get left with kind of Europe or Russia, and yeah, you could possibly set it in Europe, and I think it'd be fine. So if you had a story there, that would be fine. Start in the UK, in London, England type story. That's and work your way east towards other countries in Europe. That would make sense. Or you could even start probably in Greenland, and that would make some sense too.
The light protects me.
Where there's such a low population of people, the zombie apocalypse would maybe never even start. But that really doesn't answer the question about what do you do there and what kind of gameplay do you have. I think what they do is they license The Walking Dead to other game developers who want to make something that is an RPG, first-person, third-person shooter game, and like Dying Light developers, for example, and try to have other developers make a game around their story instead of just making a generic zombie game. Because in all honesty, The Walking Dead is just a zombie story with some name recognition. There's not a lot you can do to spice it up on that. Do we have enough now to do this?
I fight.
Need 4 more. And the turn. This will be our last game for this recording. Gamatsu has an article, Sword Art Online Deep Explorer announced for arcades. So if this is an arcade game, it will probably only come out in Japan. I'm skipping through the trailer. It seems like it's an RPG, which would be a weird, certainly from a Western perspective, to have like a RPG-esque game in an arcades. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's some kind of save file system where you put in a memory card and it saves your progress in the arcade. Let's see. It says it's an exploration action RPG that supports up to 3 players in online co-op and first arcade game in the Sword Art Online system. That certainly is an idea that would have never been even considered in outside of Japan. I guess if you ever wondered if arcades still mattered, I screwed that up terrible.
For the wild.
Screwed up real bad there. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Red Dead Redemption 2 PS4 Early Access content revealed. What is it?
Reporting for duty.
PS4 players will get 30 days exclusivity to test out the Arabian Horse, featuring a custom alligator skin saddle and the High Roller double action revolver. PS4 users will need to activate a subscription to PS Plus to play Red Dead Online. Also, you get the Grizzly's Outlaw outfit apparently. It's available day one. Maybe you have to buy that, it seems.
For the wild. Well played.
So yeah, it doesn't seem like there's really too much that you're getting, except for the fact that I'm not 100% sure that the Red Dead Redemption is coming to PC, so yeah, there's been no confirmation of that, so you're still just left with the choice if you want to play it brand new, are you playing it on a PS4 or the Xbox One? And certainly that is a issue that has not been thought through, or no progress has been made on that for me personally. Like, I still don't own a PS4, I still don't own an Xbox One, I still don't have any kind of funding at the point where it would make any kind of sense to go from solely PC games to some of these console exclusives. To be fair, I'm not sure that very many streamers really benefit too much for doing the console exclusives, because there's so many games out there. There's something you can find that came out for PC. Okay, well that's going to be it for this recording. Hopefully everything's going alright. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.